Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How's everyone doing today?
Awesome.
Good.
Small group has grown just a little bit more. Happy Thursday. Let's start with any gratitudes, wins for the week so far. Mike?
Yeah, so I'm just grateful for these trainings. Recently I'm going probably through the biggest breakthrough I've had, like my life and business for sure.
Yeah.
And it's because it's already stuff I've heard, and it's so simple, but it just hit me at the right time.
Yeah.
So,
Right. I love that.
Interesting.
I love that.
Cool.
Growing all the time, learning all the time, and then sometimes it just resonates, right?
Yep.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Miriam?
So I got my first under contract.
Woohoo! And she just came over not even 2 weeks ago, just about,
Yeah.
right?
It's been
Congrats.
2 weeks.
Yeah, I think it is.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost, not even.
Yeah.
Well,
So
welcome.
that was good. I was trying to
Congratulations. That's
clean up
amazing.
my equity stuff and got one under contract here, and then I had an agent that wants to work with me, so that's good.
Oh, I know.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Kind of
Yeah, that's
helped
exciting.
me out, so
Of course.
I'm excited. Yeah, I
That's
love
so
the
awesome.
momentum here. It's awesome.
I love it. And we love it that you're here. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And sharing that too. I love that. Thank you.
It's so much positive energy. It's cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we love that. That's what we strive on in the morning, especially. Thank you. Lila?
Had my first cancel of the year.
Get those out of the way too, right?
Yeah, you gotta get them out early on.
Yeah. First for everything, right? Beginning of the year.
Honestly, my seller's happy. I'm happy. We're good.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking out for them, right? It's
Yeah.
good. It's always good.
Gotta be happy about it.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's so nice to see you in the morning, consistently. It's been a little bit. Nice. Yes, Wayne.
I learned something from Russ yesterday as far as the ZAP program and
Yeah.
putting the contacts in there and sending each one of the contacts a value of the homes that are selling in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I'm real excited about
That's
that.
cool,
I
huh?
think that's really neat.
Yeah.
Get a
That is so
ton
exciting,
of people
and-
out there, and it's just a little bit of them,
Yeah.
anything.
Especially because you have so many contacts, and I love that you brought that up. I was sitting in the training yesterday about the waiver too, so that was really good. I actually didn't know that part, that you can change the category of the client that's on there. How many of you guys have been to ZAP or used that at all? Okay, training
I
is
think
amazing.
once you send those,
Yeah.
I did that too, and I can't believe how much more activity you have
Yeah,
after
you
you
do.
send them that home value thing.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
crazy.
I know, and especially trying to increase our SOI now by 100 by the end of February. It's a good challenge. And honestly, if you have more questions, just email Russ. He can help out.
I
Is
think
that
it's
okay?
kind of addicting to see how fast they're
Right.
reacting too,
That's true.
like how active they
Yeah.
are. I'm
You're
curious. all the
continuously
time.
checking?
That's good.
It's funny because I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have thought that person would be interested.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun.
I love that. I know, and especially increasing your SOI right now to try to get your business picking up on its own and having the system work for you is amazing. So please use that. If you have questions, let Russ know. Anyone else? We have a new face in the room, so I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Victoria. I'm just here to join in on the training. Just in the middle of school.
Oh, great.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
Oh, that's awesome.
Trying
That's
to
awesome.
do it.
Which school are you going to?
Stringham.
Stringham. Love it. Love it. They're amazing. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
How soon before you finish?
Maybe a month.
About a month. Okay, well, you're welcome to come anytime.
Thank you.
The meetings are awesome and so are the trainings. Welcome. Anyone else? Oh, okay, the announcements, guys. How many have signed up for the Elevate 2020? Raise hands. Anyone else? Okay, great. If you guys have more questions about that, please call this number. The book we're reading, we just started it yesterday, is What I Wish I Knew When I Was 20. That's an amazing book as well. And we also have a marketing compliance class. When is this? It's a 2-hour core, and it is. It was last week.
Don't
Never
we
mind.
have one today though at 11?
We're gonna have to take that out. Yeah, there is one today. No.
Dot loop? No?
Not that
Okay.
better be, I've got a different class.
Yeah.
Okay.
What class are you doing today?
Needs analysis.
Needs
Oh, you got
analysis.
needs analysis
Yeah.
going. That's right.
Today we are actually having, 10 o'clock. Today we're having Russ doing morning Ascent. So please come up. Russ.
Yeah. Hey.
All right, well, I'm excited to be with you guys today.
We're excited that
And
you're here.
here's what I always think is funny. If you were going to a concert
everybody wants the front row. But for some reason, church and real estate, you get there early so that you can get the back row, apparently, right? Like, I don't know what it is about that.
That is true.
But when you go to a concert, nobody wants to sit in the back.
Yeah.
But, anyway.
It's because when you go to a concert, you want to see who's presenting. And when
Oh, ouch!
Well, when you come to stuff like this, you sit in the back row so you can watch everyone else.
Oh, is that what it is?
Nice recovery.
Cool.
I was just gonna say you learn more in the front.
I learned, so here's what's interesting to me. We used to always go to the management retreat for Mike Ferry, and last year we went down to, so it was down in Huntington Beach, and the first day of the class I walked in and Rick was on the very front row, like where Jonathan's sitting, and had a seat reserved next to him or saved. So I kind of went and said, hey, can I sit there? And he let me sit there. The next day I thought I should sit in the back where some of the other managers from a different state were sitting, and it was amazing the difference, Mike, of like the first day I was totally engaged and paying
Yeah.
attention and learning, and the next day sitting in the back I was like I'm a distraction when I'm in the back row. So anyway,
I-
glad you're here.
I like to put a spin on it. I don't sit up front to get attention. I sit up front to pay attention.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, well, good. Well, either way, I'm glad you're here, right? So thanks for being here. Now, here's what I want to talk about for a minute is whenever I train, for me as a trainer, I always feel like my job is to enable you to know with a capital K. Meaning, the challenge that I have learned over the years of me training is if you can get someone to understand. So when I say know with a capital K, ultimately I think what I'm really saying is to get them to really understand. Meaning, we can know certain things but not do them. Teenagers are a perfect example of that. You can say to a teenager, why'd you do that? I don't know. Well, but you know you're not supposed to do that. I know. Well, so why did you do it? I don't know. Like, ultimately, that's what happens with us is once we actually know, when we really know, or maybe, again, saying it as when we understand, when we truly understand something is when we will actually make the change and do the thing differently. Meaning, back to a teenager again, when they say, yeah, I know I'm not supposed to do that. Well, why'd you do it? I don't know. It's because they know, they just don't understand. Okay? Now, so one of my mantras that I have in my life, and this is what I want to talk about today with you guys, is power comes out of telling the truth. Power comes out of telling the truth. The thing, I think, when I first met George, the thing that resonated with me that had me say I want to go be a part of Everest was what he said is, as a company, we are in search of truth. And whatever we teach needs to be just truth. And truth doesn't change. Meaning, just think of truth as being like gravity. Gravity doesn't change. It just is, right? Yeah. We are in search of truth, just the truths, the things that are out there that are true because they don't change, and that is what's going to lead to your success. Now, can someone be honest without telling the truth? Okay, so give me an example of being honest without telling the truth. Right?
Just like you're lying, not on purpose. Like, oh, I parked over there, but you forgot that you parked over here.
Okay, good. So you're being honest,
Yeah.
but you're not telling the truth. Good. How about thousands of years ago they thought the world was flat?
They
So
still do.
they still
Some do. There's some weirdo on TV.
Is that true? All right. Well, but think about it. When the parents were teaching their kids, were they telling the truth?
No.
But were they being honest? Yeah.
That's what
So
they do.
we can be honest without telling the truth. Now, this will make more sense as I get into it, but just keep in mind that telling the truth is an active and a constructive process as well. So when I say to you, power comes out of telling the truth is an active and a constructive process, meaning it's something that over time we're going to learn things that we're going to realize, oh, I thought that was truth, but maybe it really wasn't truth all along, okay? Now, when I say power comes out of telling the truth, this may not make sense for a minute with you, but stick with me. If you think about how your brain works, 10% of who you are is conscious. 90% of who you are is unconscious. Meaning, most of what you do throughout the day, you are doing because of what the programming that has gone on in your unconscious. Okay? Does that make sense? Meaning let me say it a different way. The things in your life that don't work, that frustrate you, that are not working for you, you have habitualized those things. We have habitualized the things in our life that don't work. And unfortunately, to some extent, we're actually even comfortable with those things that don't work. And we don't want to change them because we're comfortable with them, even though they don't work. But where they have come from is they are habits or conditioning. Think of it that way. Your brain works like a computer. It has had programming that has gone on. You have programmed certain things in your life to come out a certain way. Said a different way is the results that you get in life are a result of the habits that you have in your unconscious. So when I talk to you about power comes out of telling the truth, and thinking is not the same thing as knowing. Now, I'm glad you guys are in the back. So if you in the front, maybe don't answer if you can fully see this. But what is this? What do you see?
Skull.
Do you think that or do you know it?
I think that.
Okay, so tell me why you think that.
Because of the outline and the picture that it's given me. I could see the bone structure.
Okay. What about the rest of you? Do you think it or do you know it?
I think it.
Okay.
I think it, but what can it? It's a woman with a mirror.
Yeah.
Do you
A woman with a mirror?
have you seen this before?
No.
You can see it from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not a skull. So if I get closer to you where you can actually see what's happening in this picture, is it a skull?
No. I still see a skull from here.
I'll walk it over to you so you can see.
If that's a woman with a mirror, that's scary.
Yeah, she's cute.
Not
She's
my
actually
type
cute.
of woman.
She's actually cute. Wait till he gets close.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
She's actually cute.
Oh snap! Really?
Yeah, so you can see.
What?
All right. Now, what happened though, think of it this way. What happened with that is when I first showed the picture to you, what you saw was a skull. Now,
yeah.
why? Why did you see it is not a skull, but why did you see it as a skull?
That's what I wanted to see.
Okay,
no,
good.
No, it's because we process info very quickly so we can place it.
Good. How your brain works, your brain, think of it this way. Your brain does not want nothing to be nothing. It won't allow nothing to be nothing. So when you see that, what happens is we have these senses. So think of it this way, is we've got these 5 senses here, which are we see, we touch, we hear, we smell, all of those things. We've got these 5 senses. What happens is your brain, using these 5 senses, either sees it, hears it, smells it, touches it, whatever it is, and then immediately drops down into the unconscious and says basically, what are the things, how can we interpret that to make it something that we would understand? See, without having seen the picture of the woman looking in the mirror before, you have no brain cells that are going to recognize that. But you have seen a skull before, so what happens is as soon as I showed this to you, what goes on in your brain is it says, oh, I know exactly what that is. Now, what typically will happen if I was far enough away from you guys and I kept showing it and saying it's not a skull, you would start to argue that it is because of what's gone on here. Now, think of it this way. In your life, that is what has happened. Is we have these 5 senses that what's gone on is we go and do things and it then says this must be how it is, and because we think that's how it is, we then respond a certain way that gets us a certain result or a certain outcome. So said it more plainly, I guess, if you are not getting the results that you want in your life, it is because of your thinking. Meaning, what sets us apart from animals?
The ability to choose.
Thumbs.
Thumbs.
Okay, good. What else?
All right.
We can become whatever we want to become.
Yeah.
That's right. Meaning, like, just the first thought that comes to my mind, a deer gets caught in a fence, it's going to struggle and try to get out, but it doesn't stop and look at it and go, okay, what I need to do is, we can reason, we can think about it, we can do things. Now the challenge is, though, that John brought up, is our thinking is out of sync with reality by a half of a second. Meaning, this programming that has gone on here happens a half of a second before you think it happens. Meaning, when you're having a conversation with somebody and what happens is you say something, and as you're saying it, you're realizing, I should not be saying this right now in an argument with somebody. Has anybody else, am I the only one that's ever done that? Oh, good. Okay, good. What is happening with that is this programming is reacting before we have the chance to think about it. So this thinking is ahead of this one, which is why we can say, I know, but I don't know why I did it. Well, the reason we don't know why we did it is because our thinking is out of sync with reality by a half of a second. So you're actually doing things before you think that you are doing them, and that's what the challenge is. So first Wayne, then Greg.
When I was growing up, I grew up in the South, in New Orleans, and my hobby was collecting snakes.
Okay.
I could find a snake anywhere, but there were times that I could look in an area and I know that a snake is there, I just couldn't see it. My brain was registering in that 90%, but I still couldn't see it, and I would study it for a long period of time, and then I'd say, okay, I see it finally. But I would know it was there before I could really see it.
Interesting. That's cool. Thank you for sharing that. Greg.
Cool and scary.
So when we looked at the skull, we were in a sense behaving like an animal, because I've seen it. I saw a dog once bark at a mannequin.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't a real person, but appeared to be in that first. So it was pure reaction.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we didn't break it down and dissect it and look into it close enough.
That's awesome. Love that. Thank you.
So one that just popped into my head, as a young kid, my mom says, eat all your dinner before you get up from the table. Now as an adult, I had this overwhelming desire to eat everything on my plate, which produced this, which is not a good thing. And it's very difficult to train myself out of that, not to overeat. Because, and I know it's wrong, but I can just sit there and go, but I gotta finish it. It's amazing how deep that is in and how hard it is to get that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the reason is because these things have become habits.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, once something becomes a habit, it's going to be very hard to break. But so how do we change it? So how do we get these things to change? Well, that's my point of starting this, was saying power comes out of telling the truth. Telling the truth is an active and a constructive process. We first have to look at the results that we're getting and be able to say, based on the results that I'm getting, there are some things in here that I need to change. And how do I go about changing them? Well, the way you're going to have to go about changing them is through this thing that we've been given that animals don't have, is the ability to reason or to think. And we have to stop and look at the results that we get. So let me say it to you a little bit differently. This is point A, this is point B. I want to go from here to here, but along the way, I'm going to come up against obstacles or barriers. Obstacles are external, barriers are going to be internal, things that are stopping me in here. Whenever you get to this barrier, you have the choice to either pay the price to get through it, or we end up down here at point C, which is some other result. And every time you come up against a barrier and you end up at some other result, it is because of these conditions or these habits that you have habitualized in here. So how do we go about changing it? Is we got to stop back here and say, okay, I keep running into the wall. I keep pounding my head against this wall over and over again. I don't want to do that anymore, so what do I need to change about it? We make the change back here, not when we're here at the wall. Right?
I've thought for a long time that emotions are what give us the immediate knee-jerk
Yes.
action or
Correct.
or thought. So it goes back to emotions.
Yes, absolutely. Up here is where things are logical. Down here is where it's the emotion. You're exactly right. So when you hear George talk about, those of you guys that have been around for a while, you hear George talk about our thoughts lead our feelings, and our feelings lead to our actions, actions lead to the results. Our thoughts lead to our feelings, the feelings lead to the actions, which lead to the results. That's what he's talking about. And so how we have to change it is everything that is happening. You heard me say a little bit earlier that things that are happening, it just is. Meaning what happens is when we have experiences, what tends to happen is we have the option to look at it as a negative or a positive. And the things in our life that don't work are because we're looking at the negative. Said another way, whenever you come up against a barrier and you bump up against it and you don't take responsibility for bumping up against that obstacle, you lose. Because all you're doing is taking an escape hatch of saying, well, I would have done it except for. In fact, when I first got here this morning, I said something about, wow, only a few people in role play today. And somebody said, well, it's because of the weather. I don't know who said that. Something about the weather. Is that really the truth? No. Power comes out of telling the truth. That's not the truth. Meaning, but we will do that. Well, I would have gone door knocking today, but it was cold. No, it was cold, just is. We can decide if it doesn't matter, I'm going to do it, or I'm going to take the escape hatch. And think of it that way. The things in your life that don't work, it is probably because you have created an escape hatch that you're going to take that says, well, I would have done it except for. And it's all just an excuse, which is a lie.
And then you justify it.
And you justify it, which is a lie. That's why when I say power comes out of telling the truth, when I'm saying that, what I'm referring to is telling yourself the truth right here. That it wasn't the weather, it wasn't the clients, it wasn't the leads, it wasn't anything else. It was my skill or what as soon as you take control of that, you get the power back. Anytime you are blaming it on something outside of yourself, you are giving up your power. The moment you say, I am the cause or the reason that these things have not been working for me, I have the power to change it, now you're telling the truth and you give yourself the ability to change it. But as long as you are blaming it on something else, taking an escape hatch, you have no ability to change it. Go ahead.
The book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell is all about this.
Yeah, he called and consulted with me on it before.
And that's fine if he did.
No, he didn't.
In there it talks about how we know things before we know them. And that's all because of the subconscious. And in there it also talks about how our ability to process things correctly happens better when we're in a higher state of energy. Mm-hmm. Although if we get too much adrenaline, it's a bad no man's land, and our ability to reason and process goes out the door.
That's right.
Which is why certain precincts, cops are told they are absolutely not to engage in a high-speed chase. Because if their adrenaline goes up, they can't process, and bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the book's just, it's all about it. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I've read it. It was very good. You're right.
So Russ, is it fair to say that to change the outcome is in that 10% quartile, to be able to assign it a positive story, to digest into the 90% subconscious to create a different action?
Yep.
Is that the process in which to change the way we respond?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what it starts with, and that's what I was saying, it all starts with power comes out of telling the truth. Tell yourself the truth. The reason that I did whatever, or it didn't work for me, is not because of the weather. It is not because of the traffic. Meaning, like, showing up late somewhere, people will constantly say, well, I'm sorry, I'm late because of the traffic. Well, is the traffic really the reason that they were late? Most of the time, is it the reason?
No.
No. What's the truth?
You just didn't get going in time.
That's right. And that's where when I say power comes out, but as long as you blame it on the traffic, there is no mandate to change it.
That's an escape hatch.
That's right.
Okay.
But as soon as I say I didn't as soon as I take responsibility and say I didn't leave on time, I didn't get up on time, I didn't prepare to leave on time, whatever, now I have the ability to change it. But as long as you are blaming it on an outside force, there is no ability to change it.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. All right, so the moral for this today is power comes out of telling the truth. When I say power comes out of telling the truth, it's not to other people, but to yourself. Tell yourself the truth, that the reason that things are not working, if they're not, is because of the way that I'm interacting with them. It is not something outside of you. It is all contained within, and we have the power to change that. So, anyway, any other thoughts, comments?
Love that.
Loved it.
Lila?
So, not many know, but my middle daughter is autistic. And all the schools, everywhere we went, they said she'll never progress past 4th grade. I never told my daughter she was autistic. I refused to acknowledge that that was a handicap. It was just a challenge of a different perspective. And she graduated with honors from high school.
Wow.
And is now finishing her CNA and all of that fun stuff. But I've never allowed my children to be told that you have this excuse as to why you won't move forward. I mean, we got to a point where I actually had to get into a lawsuit to get my daughter removed from the Jordan School District's autistic program and put her into mainstream school because I refused to give her that excuse.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that I wasn't telling her the truth, but I was being honest with ourselves. Each person has a different learning template.
That's right.
And it is our job as parents, it's our job as people to understand our templates and understand other people's. And I've always refused to allow my children those excuses because they just learn differently.
Yeah.
You just took away
Perfect.
the limiting belief,
That's right.
and that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
Wow.
I was listening to a product order by Abraham Hicks this morning, and one of the things that I love that she was talking about is we constantly, right, are looking outward for essentially our fulfillment or the blame or our abilities to not be able to accomplish something, things like that. And she specifically was talking with this guy about love. And she's like, you want love, but yet your vibration is in a negative state. So what do you think people have to do? They have to come down to your vibration, therefore you're not getting what you want, right? And so I think there's power in what you're saying, Russ, and telling yourself the truth, but also making sure that you're telling yourself the truth so you're being who you need to be, and you're holding that vibrational or higher
That's right.
consciousness or that energy, like you're saying, right? So that you actually attract that, because you're not going to bring in something that you want without being that person first, or telling the truth to yourself that you're not being that person, right? I love it. There was one time I had a coach, Tony Robbins coach, that basically, you know, as I was going through some things, she asked me, she goes, so what are your passions? And in this certain circumstance, right, I was frustrated with a specific individual in my life that was like, not doing anything with their life, being complacent, this and that, and she's like, so what are your passions? What are your habits? And I just sat there and I was like, huh. And I remember exactly where I was sitting, and she goes, you often will critique or blame other people for something that they're doing when you are critiquing yourself. Usually when you're mad at your spouse, it's because you're mad at yourself. Usually when you're frustrated, you know, like the circumstances are not because of outward situations, it's because you have caused it. Regardless of what you want to believe, good or bad, you, in every circumstance in your life, has happened because of your decisions that have led you there.
Yeah, in fact, as you're saying that, the thought that I had is, we all know people that you look at them and you're like, they are just so lucky. Seems like everything that happens to them just happens great for them. Well, see, what my belief is because they are more staying on this side of the spectrum rather than the negative side, which is what you are saying, which then creates that attracting it to us. If we had more time, I would talk about, if you think about an acorn and how it grows, planted in the earth, how does it grow? It is getting this nutrients that comes to it that then allows it to sprout and grow. Ultimately, that's the same thing. The people who you know in your life that you see that just always have bad things happen, my guess is they're always going, well, I mean, it's the Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, you know, oh, well, now it's going to be windy again. Like, it's because we're taking the negative spin on everything. Everything just is. Then we just decide, is it a negative or is it a positive? And if you assign it as a negative, it goes down into the 90% and manifests itself in your results.
Well, it reflects itself, right? I mean, out of the 90%, it's reflecting in almost everything we do.
Yep.
We magnify it, right?
Yep. Yeah, Earl Nightingale said that life is a reflection of your attitude. And that's exactly what it is.
And without changing up here in this first quartile, we can't change our lives
That's
because
right.
we automatically just walk through life with either that positive or negative attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
an echo.
So crazy.
It's an echo. Love it.
It's an echo. I like that.
Mike.
I just wanted to say how cool it is to have the ability to choose.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's the secret, right?
It is.
You are what you think about all the time, and
Yep.
yeah,
It's
it's just
amazing.
awesome.
Cool. Okay, well, thanks for being here, guys, and tell yourself the truth and you watch what happens.
Love it.
All right, stand up, closing affirmations.
Let's go.
All right, I succeed because I act on my goals. I'm an optimist. I like talking to new people. I know what's important to me. I remember people's names. I believe in my follow. I'm passionate about real estate. I know this is my greatest tool. I like asking questions and listening. I enjoy reading to improve my sales skills. My thoughts and my emotions actually